Well, not so good news on the economic front, I'm afraid. India has dropped 10 places on the Global Competitive Index in a study by the World Economic Forum. India now ranks 68th out of 141 economies which have been studied. Joining us live from Geneva, the author of the report, Thierry Giga, the head of research and benchmarking at the World Economic Forum. Thanks, Thierry, very much for being with us. We're also joined by two people who watch the economy very closely, Sanchita Mukherjee. Sanchita is a senior private wealth management expert, and Hindol Sengupta, the economist, join us as well. Thierry, let me come to you first. A sharp drop of 10 places to 68th out of 141 economies for India. Why has that happened?
Well, hi, good evening. Well, I think to a certain extent this drop has to be downplayed in the sense that the score drop is actually quite small. It's like 0.6 on a 0 to 100 scale. It's a 0.6 drop. It's just that other countries around India have moved up faster, and that's what explained the double-digit drop. So it has to be downplayed. So it's more stagnation, but at a not very high level. So it is worrisome to a certain extent.
And Thierry, in terms of where India has not done well, ranked 120th in information, communication and technology adoption, 80th in diversity of workforce. Where are some of the areas where India is lagging, and what does that indicate in terms of competitiveness?
Yeah, I mean, the profile, the competitiveness landscape of India is interesting because you still see India struggling in some of the most basic drivers of economic development, whereas you do see India doing quite well when it comes to this innovation capability, these pockets of excellence, these corporate giants which are successful abroad. So there is this unbalanced development, and they still struggle when it comes to health. One of the lowest life expectancy outside sub-Saharan Africa. Still struggle with ICT, you mentioned, digital adoption. Infrastructure is not so bad, but the governance and the rule of law, we know property rights, land administration, some of the basic framework conditions, we observe a number of shortcomings there, whereas we do see in more sophisticated areas quite good performance.
Okay. Sanchita, how would you react to this? That there is a huge disparity. We are number 3 in market size, number 3 in renewable energy regulations, number 2 in shareholder governance, and then 109th in health expectancy, 120th in information communication. It's all over the place, and that's what's brought our ranking down.
Yes. So thanks, Vishnu. I quite agree with Thierry in the report which has come out. If you were to analyze, yes, we have slipped in the position and in the place. Not so much in the
points, just 0.7.
Yes, not so much as in points. Why? Because a lot of countries have raced ahead at a faster pace. What we need to focus on as a
country, which isn't necessarily the best for us. I mean, ideally we should have done better at a faster clip. Others have caught up, and obviously the conditions are different, and you can't compare different countries and their status. But we've been relatively stagnant. I think that's the point.
Yes. So in that aspect, what we need to look at is, yes, there has been a slew of measures which has gotten liquidity into the system in terms of the uptake in the credit cycle. The RBI is really focused, the monetary policy. The government has also worked in terms of the corporate tax rate cuts, which we spoke about last time, right? Which is overall very good because that incentivizes corporates to invest, to do the private investment, to refine the pricing of their products, revive demand, spend more on advertising, marketing. However, I think India can do much more in terms of liberalizing their trade policies, having legal reforms, land and labor law reforms should be looked at aggressively next. And these things should be need to looked at at a very fast pace. Say, for example, when we are talking about manufacturing, this report talks about manufacturing. If we have to have a desired effect in our manufacturing, then we could look at tax incentives for foreign investors into, say, high-tech or electronics manufacturing. We are one of the largest importers of defense. So why not set up, have a focus on defense manufacturing?
We do.
Similarly,
not necessarily
it can be manifold. It's a huge multiplier growth effect in terms of employment and what it can do to the economy. Secondly, we can also make ease of business very easy in India in terms of importing components such that they can be assembled here. I was just reading, in fact, a tweet by Mr. Anand Mahindra, in which he said that we have a huge coastline on the eastern and western, so why not set up multiple SEZs, you know, which can cater to the entire traffic on the eastern and western side.
And that would help the to spur growth. Essentially, that's your key
Absolutely.
point.
It's a part of the Niti Aayog proposal, I believe.
Hindol, how would you look at this report? And, you know, I mean, 68 out of 141 doesn't all go well for us. We can look at the upside, and a lot of people on Twitter are saying that, you know, why look at only the negative things? Why concentrate on the drop in rank? Why don't you look at the positive areas? But I think the only thing that really needs to be looked at as a headline is the ranking, 68th out of 141 economies. And this comes, of course, at a time when Moody's, for example, has just cut its growth forecast to 5.8% for 2019-2020. So are we really in a reasonably precarious position compared to where we would like to be?
Vishnu, as a World Economic Forum young global leader, I look at some of these debates and I cannot but smile with irony. You see, here's the point. Where are we lacking? We are lacking in some of, as Thierry was saying, some of the fundamental things, right? Health, sanitation. But none of these things can be solved overnight. India's massive sanitation drive, for instance, via the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, that will take time to show in numbers. Sanitation improvement and then leading to health improvement does not show in numbers in 4 or 5 years. This is a decadal, multi-decadal change. So this will, we have neglected all these things for many, many years. This change will take time to show. Number two, I heard my other co-panelists talk about SEZs, talk about, you know, labor reforms. Here's the ironical thing. We say these things in television studios, but God forbid any government actually tries to make a labor reform in this country. Remember when this government tried to make a labor reform in this country, spoke about land reform, it was called Sood Boot Ki Sarkar. So immediately then, you know, other people will come up and say, well, this is too capitalistic, this is not socialist enough, you know, this is stealing from the country. All kinds of completely uneconomic arguments will be made. We spoke about defense production. The moment you talk about greater defense production in India, and I completely agree, for India's sovereignty and for India's own security interests, India must have a great indigenous defense manufacturing establishment. But again, then pacifists will come up and say, this is not Gandhian
So basically
enough.
what you're saying, Indol, is that it can't be done.
This is not the idea of India.
In
so
any finite period of time.
We have to decide, Vishnu, where do we want
we
India
end up
to be,
being
where do we want
68
India
then.
to stand?
No, Hindol, then we end up being 68th, right? Out of 141.
No, we don't. We have to wait. No, we don't. This is a good point, but no, we don't. We have to wait. Look at, for instance, one of the things that this report shows, right? Health and sanitation. That can only change by sanitation like the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, or for instance, by getting clean piped water. If this government succeeds in bringing piped water to 141 million households, there will be a change in numbers, but that will take time.
All right, so fair enough. I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us this evening. And Thierry, it's one last comment to you, Thierry, just perhaps to reflect on what Hindol was mentioning, that look, none of these things in the case of India can happen overnight. So how realistic are these numbers towards projecting the potential of a nation? Sanitation in India is going to take many, many years. Even implementing information communications and technology adoption is going to take many, many years. We are a developing nation. So realistically, how fast can things change for India?
I mean, I think we heard that there are some low-hanging fruits when it comes to regulations and barriers to entry and licenses. These can be reformed relatively rapidly. And then, indeed, at the same time, you have some factors that will take years to change. But at least if it's going in the same right direction, maybe not at the fast pace, but at least in the right direction, I mean, it's encouraging. And we need to acknowledge that India is a huge country, that the challenges are multiplied compared with the smaller economies, but at least aiming for changes in the right direction, and regardless of what the others are doing, I think that's what we will be looking at. It's like slow progress, even if it takes time, slow progress in the right direction. That would be amazing. And we do see ICT increasing, almost double-digit growth in technology penetration. We do see improvement. Electrification, we do see progress. infrastructure as well. So it's moving, but it's moving slowly, and other areas should be improved. The low-hanging fruit.
Fair enough, Thierry. Fair enough, Thierry Geiger, the lead report author and head of research and benchmarking at the World Economic Forum, which has come out with this new report. Hindol and Sanchita, thank you both very much for being with us.